What did you both, I'm just curious, what did you both think when a lot of this violence started becoming more public? And I think between 2019 and 2020, there was this huge, like 150% increase in reported hate incidents. I'm just curious, what was your reaction or your experience when all of that was happening?
What I want people to know is that it isn't just happening in New York and San Francisco and LA, it's happening here. You know, some of the scary stuff that's happened within 2 miles of where I live in Lakewood. It scared me. It got to the point where I don't go to the grocery store without my husband. He's white. But I feel safer if he's with me. Because I know that the grocery store that's right near me, 2 women of Japanese heritage, one was yelled at, "Go back to where you came from," and she's like, "Where's that? You know, Montbello." You know, and the other one was spit on, which is an assault, and we've been hearing that a lot. Pacific Mercantile, Jolie has had her windows, rocks thrown through her windows. It's just too close to home, and I don't like it. I don't like it. But we do have advocates. Governor Polis was one of the first advocates to come out, because one of the things that has also affected is small businesses, our Asian small businesses. Even before the shutdown, they had people started thinking, well, I'm not going to go to that restaurant. They get their food from China. And it's not true. They may be bat infested. So all of those Chinese restaurants in our, like in Little Saigon Business District and in Aurora, even throughout the state, people stopped going because of that idiotic, rhetoric that was going on. And so now when our businesses are trying to recover, just like every other businesses, they are so far behind and just barely hanging in there. But how did they hang in there? It's just probably like your parents did at the liquor store and mine did. They hire all the kids to work for them for free.
Oh yeah.
They do a lot of
every college break, winter.
That's right.
I'm there in the freezer restocking.
And payroll comes under the table in cash, and instead of going to the primary lenders for capital, they're going to grandpa and great aunt for that money to get us through to the next time. That's how they're hanging on, but that can't last. That can't last.
Yeah, like when all the violence started happening, or when it became more public, I should say. My first thought was very personal, because it's with elderly men and women, and people in their 70s, 80s, 90s, and honestly, like the only word I could think of was like cowardice. I mean, like how cowardly is that? And I was immediately thinking about my mother, who lives by herself and is in her late 70s, and like talking to her and saying, like,
is she here?
She is. She lives down in Castle Rock.
Okay.
And so she doesn't go out much, but I mean, obviously because of the pandemic, but even to the extent of it was all at that time, I was, be careful if you do go out. You need to get that? Let me go get that for you.
Drive it down.
So you don't have to, just because of this sense of fear, which I had never felt before for any of my parents in my lifetime up to this point.
I still work with a lot of Asian communities that still get that thing where they're being gaslighted into thinking that they're wrong, into thinking that, oh, you're just being too sensitive. We're just joking. We're crying out loud, and that's the way a bully talks to a little kid, but that's the way these bullies are talking to us as adults. And I don't, I think I'm hoping that the violence starts trending downwards. But as soon as, as early as just last month, we've been seeing and hearing things. So as our community starts opening up and trying to recover, I do have hope that we can recover from that. But, not if people are telling us we're being too sensitive.
Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. That's just garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a reckoning that is coming.
Right.
Okay. And the reckoning is that our population in the United States is changing.
That's right.
Okay.
That's the reckoning.
And it's diversifying. And it is going to happen, and that because of that, just day-to-day life is going to be affected by that, by everybody. Everybody's day-to-day life eventually will be affected by that, and so.
That's scary for some people. I think.
Yeah, I believe
think
that may be the case.
That's
for a lot
why
of
this is
people.
happening.
Yeah,
They want to
because
stop
change. Yeah, change is well, if they're not aware of it now, they will be in the future, and then it could have a different impact on in terms of fear of change in the future for the majority community.
Which
Right.
by 2025 will be people of color.
Yep.
And I think and Asian Americans will be the largest immigrant group in the United States.
Yeah.
I think that scares people.
Yeah.
That's why we're seeing this.
So.
Where's my whiskey?
So and so, but it doesn't hurt to talk about it
No.
as much as possible, so that that we can have a more shared awareness of how things are changing. But it doesn't mean it's a bad change. Okay,
No.
in my mind, it's a good change.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so the when I was growing up, there was a lot of pressure on me to assimilate,
Yeah.
and so eventually we were able to move from the red line area into the suburbs, which was part of a lot of different families were doing that for different reasons. Mine was to get closer to a grocery store that my parents bought in North Denver, Northwest Denver, and so and so there was a lot of that to be able to live and work in the white world.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so that was a big emphasis of succeeding in doing that.
Did you ever, I was white at school, but Asian at home.
Yeah.
So there was two of me,
Yeah.
and never the two met.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just how I had to grow up.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying and empathize. And I think for me it was school was a place where my parents were okay, I didn't speak English. This is what my parents told me. I didn't speak English until I started formal school. I spoke Korean the entire time, and then I actually completely lost all my Korean because I was just you had to learn English. You had to learn English. But when you go to school, you sort of have to. There's a sense of, I don't know if it's pressure or if it's expectation or just a thought when you're a kid that you have in your head. You want to fit in as a kid anyway.
Right.
So the whole language and culture kind of takes second place. And that was when I was growing up, and I'm really seeing that kind of in the younger generations, a really strong interest in recapturing capturing that, the cultural roots that they come from, and actually wanting to share that, not just for themselves, but with the general public, which is a great thing, that's going on. So I think that's what I see as a real positive thing that's happening more and more,
I hope so.
and as the population expands.
Now, I know you born and raised in Denver, so you probably remember. I started going to middle school when busing started. Remember that? That was forced segregation. No, forced integration. I'm sorry. Where kids from Montbello were brought down to Southeast Denver, and Southeast Denver kids had to go to school in West Denver. It was an experiment in civil rights and integration. It didn't work. But I remember at my school that was a really tough time because I still went to a school where there were no Asians. It was just me. So who do I fit in with? Do I fit in with the white kids or the black kids or the Latino kids? I didn't know. And that's why trying to find out who you were was so hard at that time. But you're right. I think kids nowadays, they're more proud of that. The diversity, because we're having conversations like this, the diversity that they're going to be able to experience is going to be great. And I'm glad for that, just like you said. Yeah.
I'm just curious, we talked a little bit about it, like what gives you hope?
That we can talk like this, that there are more and more conversations like this happening. Like I said, I was born and raised here in Denver, and I've never seen this much attention put onto our community ever. But the good part of it is we could take that attention and turn it around and discuss things just like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact of the attention occurring is a good thing in my mind.
Right.
Because it forces the issue into the public eye, and maybe the impact of that is it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The common belief is that it's wrong, and it can't happen, shouldn't happen.
Right.
And I think in addition to being in the public eye, I hope that it's also a bit in the private eye. So it's happening in conversations that are in people's homes that maybe wouldn't engage in these types of conversations, wouldn't think about these issues before. But now, because it's become more public, they're becoming more aware, they're becoming hopefully more educated, they're being able to talk more fluently about some of these issues because they're more aware and they're more educated. And so for me, part of the hope comes in that it's unearthing things that have been around for a very long time. Issues and challenges have been around for a very long time, but hopefully some of these their conversations are happening at the dinner table as well as in front of the Capitol.
Yeah, I like that. Even in Asian homes, because I know that like my parents' generation, they would never talk about this.
Right.
What happened in the war, we're not going to talk about this. What happened during the Vietnam War, we're not going to talk about this. And I think now, just the reckoning of it, everybody has to talk about it, no matter what generation. And I'm hoping, especially the kids, when they have questions, that somebody's answering. What I found so astonishing and so validating was that there were other communities that also supported Black Lives Matter, and that the Black Lives Matter community supported us, the Asian community, especially now they are. But we received support from the Jewish community, the African community, the Black American community, Hispanic community, and I think that's a result of Black Lives Matter, is that it isn't just one ethnic race that's doing it now. We all have big voices. And that's why this Asian hate, it's ugly, but this is the biggest voice we've ever had.
Yep.
I know that is true here in Denver,
And that's why it's important to keep the focus on other communities
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
Right, keep bringing other communities in.
All the communities that are impacted.
Right.
And I think something that we all can do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's in our home or in our work, is to not be afraid to have these conversations, not be afraid to ask difficult questions of people who are in power, people who have decision-making authority, whether that's in your home or your organization or in the larger world. But I think on a day-to-day basis, one of the things that I know that I want to commit to, and I'm trying to commit to more and plan on committing to more, is how do we integrate issues of equity and inclusion and diversity into our day-to-day work, into our day-to-day conversations. So it's not something that you check a box with or think about when it's the month of May, and so we
Right,
focus
we
on
can-
Asian Americans
yeah.
now. But how do we do this on a more consistent, long-term basis?
You know, because it is a month of May, the Asian Chamber has gotten so many requests to come and talk, come and do a presentation. The cultural groups have been asked to perform and all of that, and I keep telling them, yes, I will come and talk to you, but it doesn't have to be this month.
Right.
Let's do it in June, let's do it in October, you know. Let's do it all throughout the year.
Exactly.
And, you know, kind of force that issue that it shouldn't be relegated to
Right.
just one.
And part of the cultural evolution or the cultural growth of our country, I think, is our businesses.
Yep.
And I think, there's been a kind of a leadership vacuum in our country. One critical thing that's very meaningful is businesses redefine their goals from maximizing shareholder value to addressing stakeholder issues
Yeah.
in terms of the success of how big business sees their own success.
And yeah, right. I think that's great. You know, it's going to be good for them.
Yeah,
You know,
I
if they're
think that-
looking at at our population being one of the larger populations in 25 years, yeah.
And I think part of that process too is also making sure it's not performative.
Right.
That they're just checking that box.
Yes.
That there is legitimate accountability.
Exactly.
And not just in the moment, but over time.
It isn't just talking to the community. It means having a diverse staff,
Mhm.
having a diverse board. You know, having diverse advertising. Yeah. And I totally see that. I didn't see that as a kid, so that's what makes me happy. Is
Yeah, and if their brand
Mhm.
is going to come across as authentic to a diverse population,
we're going to buy more.
yeah, or not,
Yeah, or not.
or
Yeah.
not. So
Mhm.
I think that may be a pretty compelling thing in the
Mhm.
future, and it's a good thing. It's
Well, I'm really glad. I saw you on the thing yesterday, and I'm so glad to meet you in person, and as you as well. You know, I meet so many more Asians now, because not just because of this month, but because of what's going on and just exactly what we're talking about. So it's really great to talk to you. It's really great.
glad that we did it within the context of Mile High United Way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am too. Like this conversation has been fantastic for me, just to meet you and then see you again, Charles, and just to have a space to be able to have some of these conversations and think about how we can continue to have these conversations within the context of Mile High United Way or in the context of the chamber. And so it's been a fantastic opportunity.